The Las Vegas Raiders do not have a certain quarterback situation at all, and this should bring a lot of anxiety to Raiders fans. But there is one guy out there, one guy on the roster right now who could quite possibly save the Raiders and maybe is a low-key sleeper Rookie of the Year candidate. And I am talking about the quarterback selected in the 4th round by the Las Vegas Raiders in the 2023 draft, Aidan O'Connell out of Purdue. So we're going to break down Aidan O'Connell. Who is this guy other than looking like the Super Trooper Farva? There's a lot more to this guy, and we're gonna break him down. Also, compare him to other rookie QBs, how he matches up, and the likelihood that this guy could pop off now that the Jimmy Garoppolo situation does not look too pretty for the Raiders at all whatsoever. So Jimmy Garoppolo, we know, had surgery after that introductory press conference. We didn't know about that because genius Josh McDaniels, the head coach of the Raiders, tends to keep things under wraps. Now, you have read a lot about the Jimmy Garoppolo situation, his foot. I saw a picture of the guy standing, posing for a picture. It brought questions to my mind. Is this guy in a boot right now? And do you think, just based on what you've read about the injury, you think this guy's going to be ready for training camp, which is what, 7 weeks away?
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, like I said, okay, it's the NFL. It's crazy what these guys go through and what they're capable of doing. I don't think we should necessarily compare it to a standard medical procedure. Like if it was one of us, first of all, it would take months before we could get surgery, and hopefully it took a lot, less time for him. If it was within a week after that presser, and that was like March 17th, I think it was delayed on the 16th, and then the 17th was when the presser happened.
Right.
So if he had surgery late March, basically, it would put him at like late May as to when the boot would come off at the earliest, from what I looked up.
And then he's rehabbing, and it's like, can he move around in the pocket?
Well, the question is, you saw him standing in a picture, and so it says to like ease in pressure on the foot, but can he run? I don't know if he can run right now. Let's be real,
And so like this brings me to Aidan O'Connell, because the main knock on this guy coming out of Purdue was the lack of mobility, calling him a statue in the pocket. But you got Jimmy Garoppolo, who's never been known to be exactly Lamar Jackson, right? He's never been a mobile guy. And on top of that, you have the foot problem with Jimmy Garoppolo. So when you're comparing Aidan O'Connell, the rookie quarterback, to Jimmy Garoppolo, who's mobile, well, even though this guy has had mobility problems, I think he's going to be more mobile than Jimmy Garoppolo. And when you look at his stats over the past few years, a 90.6 PFF grade in 2021, 3,700 yards passing, 3,400 yards just this past year, but 22 touchdowns, 13 picks, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. That's never too pretty, right? The interceptions have been the problem for Aidan O'Connell, and I started watching this guy, and I started watching a lot of the things that he does. I came away with just this odd impression of this dude. I watched him against Ohio State. I watched him against Michigan. I watched him against Michigan State, right? I watched all these games with this guy. Tennessee against Hendon Hooker. Wow, that was a matchup in which Aidan O'Connell, threw 5 touchdowns and 3 picks though, right? So this is the thing about Aidan O'Connell. You'll see him just be able to air it out and throw with dot, give his receiver a chance to fight for the football. He makes big plays, and I actually think he may even have the chance to air it out more than somebody like a Jimmy Garoppolo. He kind of has I said this the other day, he has a huevos, you know what I mean? I use some Spanish, and you'll see a play where every once in a while he'll run the read option, he'll try to run the football, and you see him pick up chunks of yards here and there. So there's all these positives about this guy, him being able to air it out, him not having that great of a cast around him and still performing well against elite talent, against Ohio State. And I just think his background is quite interesting to me. He's a guy who never really got everything handed to him when he came in as a walk-on at Purdue and sort of just fought his way up the depth chart. And the key thing that happened, Aidan O'Connell had a family tragedy. He had his older brother pass away. He found out about this after a game. It was an emotional experience for the guy, and the guy still continued, to grind out and be able to play football and be able to get ready for the NFL draft.
Aidan, he's got a lot going on right now. So he's emotional for a lot of reasons.
Condolences to the family, and it sucks that that happened, but at the same time, it kind of showed you who this dude is, Aidan O'Connell. Like, this guy, he's had problems. He hasn't had an easy road. He's a walk-on, death in the family, and he's still coming out there grinding, winning football games, and putting up straight numbers. And I was very impressed. You're looking at Aidan O'Connell, based on all those quarterbacks, in terms of attempts, this dude is up there. He's been given the opportunity to throw the football compared to a lot more QBs. 451 attempts last year for Aidan O'Connell. That's more than people like Drake May, more than people like Caleb Williams, way more than CJ Stroud, and also more than Bryce Young and Will Levis. So, this Purdue team has won due to Aidan O'Connell's arm, right? Like, that's what but the bad thing about this guy, the big issue with him is the turnovers. And there'll be moments when you see Aidan O'Connell just make an amazing throw, and then the next second, it's a throw that's a little too short and it's picked off. It's a throw where he's slightly hit when he attempts to throw the football, and then it's picked off. And so I think the interceptions and the problems are a big deal for Aidan O'Connell. Can he work that out? And he has gone through the process already. And you could see this against Tennessee, where he made a ton of mistakes and he came back from it and won the game. And so I think that's something that a lot of the top QBs do not go through. Have they not really experienced throwing a pick, multiple picks, and having to come back from that in a football game? Well, Aidan O'Connell has. So I think if he does make mistakes, if he is thrusted into the fire with the Raiders, and there will be mistakes. You're a rookie. You will make mistakes. But if this happens, I don't think he's the type of guy to get psyched out. I really don't. I'm optimistic about Aidan O'Connell there, is what I'll say. So the QB's taken before O'Connell.
I was going to say Hendon Hooker. Before, obviously.
And that was in the third round, right?
Yes. Third round, pick 68, obviously with the Lions. So the Saints started the QB run in the fourth round, which is interesting. It's just like, all right. So Derek Carr over there, eyes on the Fresno State QB. They go in and they start the run. And I've seen, various comments to the effect of in legacy media and elsewhere that, it was maybe started a little sooner than people thought. So you get him, you get Haener going, pick 127. Stetson Bennett's right behind him, pick 128. The Raiders, of course, trade up to get Aidan O'Connell at 135.
135.
And, he was taken before DTR out of UCLA, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He was taken before, Tanner McKee, Clayton Tune. We heard some of those names.
Jaron Hall.
Yeah.
So here's what tipped us off, though, to talking about Aidan O'Connell. And Vincent Bonsignor of the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and made fun of the guy sometimes because I think he's pretty much the spokesperson for the Raiders. And, there's nothing wrong with that. I wish I was, I wouldn't mind being the spokesperson for Raiders. Hey.
Oh, I don't think you would want that.
I think I would do a bad job, but hey, if you're going to pay me the money, if you're going to pay me the money to polish some turds, well, let me know how much money you're giving me and I'll make these turds look like crystals. You know what I'm saying?
You used to be a janitor at one point, so you have work experience in this field.
Yeah, I have cleaned some toilets. I have definitely cleaned some toilets. But the thing, nasty toilets. He always says these things. So, the Jimmy Garoppolo news happens. Anybody who's been following the Raiders for this whole entire offseason this past year, for the past 20 freaking years, like me, it's a complete disaster. Especially if you follow other teams in the NFL, it's like, well, other teams in the NFL don't have all this weird crap going on with their quarterback. Usually when the press conference is scheduled, they go and do it, and it's A-okay, and it's fine. And, Vincent Bonsignor, Las Vegas Review-Journal, he gets quotes from Mark Davis. He got the quote last year when, after McDaniels lost to Jeff Saturday, he released the quote by Mark Davis. Per Las Vegas Review-Journal, Mark Davis says that McDaniels is doing a fantastic job and is going to be the head coach for years to come. So, relationship with the owner of the Raiders, Mark Davis. And so when he tweets out, after all this Jimmy Garoppolo news, after he says nothing to see here, even though this is a complete disaster that we don't know if this starting quarterback is going to be ready, he randomly tweets out at OTAs, oh, Aidan O'Connell's looking fantastic. Young Aidan O'Connell, he's looking great. He's looking amazing.
Yeah.
And look, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, why does everything we always talk about become true? So is it really a conspiracy theory at this point? And it's just is he hyping the guy up because he knows that this guy, maybe he's been told privately that this guy is probably going to play, right? Because if it's not week 1, is it week 4 when Jimmy G re-injures the foot?
Yeah, I think as fans, we need to start mentally and emotionally preparing for a fourth round rookie quarterback to be the starter. I mean, it's a definite possibility. I'm not saying it's in the bag by any means, but what we know about Garoppolo, according to Jimmy Addendum G, is that he has to, in order to get his cash, right, he has to pass a physical for the first time. Hasn't passed one yet, okay? Pass physical, play a whole game without getting re-injured. Straight up. So if you were him, you would try and wait as long as possible until you know that you're really healed, and you know it's the NFL. These guys are going to be targeting your foot. They probably already were because he's had like ankle issues in the past. So maybe he was even, they were targeting his ankle or something and it ended up breaking his foot. But regardless, you know that you're going to have to like wait as long as possible until you're up to par. That's just going to be as safe as possible if you actually want to get paid, because so far he hasn't gotten paid a dime. And it's possible that he'll go through all this without getting paid a dime. And if you're him, obviously that's a nightmare. So you're going to do everything you can to get paid, which might mean, I don't know, maybe he starts week 1, maybe he starts, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, I don't know.
Yeah, for him, since it's a base salary, Garoppolo is getting week-to-week checks. So if he plays a few games, he gets paid for those games, but would not get paid the remainder if he re-injures that left foot,
right,
which is specifically, and then he would forego the rest of his salary for the remainder of the year. Now, I want to say this thing about Aidan O'Connell and Rookie of the Year. We talked about the other quarterbacks who were taken ahead of him, and we talk about Will Levis. We talk about Hendon Hooker, who's not going to play. I mean, Jared Goff's the starter there with the Lions. But we talk about people who are going to play. CJ Stroud, bro, is going to play for the Texans. Anthony Richardson with the Colts, he is going to play and be the starter along with Bryce Young of the Carolina Panthers. Jake Haener, obviously, he's not going to play because they got Derek Carr and the Saints. But I'm sorry, guys, I had to. But when we're looking at these people, and I'm looking at the weapons they have, and I'm looking at these other quarterbacks, and I'm thinking about who's going to be Rookie of the Year. And if you're gambling, on something like DraftKings, which, we work with sometimes, we got to look at some Rookie of the Year odds, and there's always that sleeper quarterback. Every year, there's always that sleeper quarterback who you did not expect to be the guy. You did not expect him to be the franchise QB, and then he does it. Whether or not it's Russell Wilson getting ready for the season when I believe Matt Flynn was supposed to be the starter. Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round pick. He ended up coming up. They all thought his size was a problem. Whether or not it was Derek Carr, he was in the 2nd round, and people said, "Hey, Matt Schaub's supposed to be the starting QB." Derek Carr ended up starting last year with the Brock Purdy phenomenon. I mean, like Brock Purdy was arguably the best QB last year. And then you also have Jalen Hurts selected in the 2nd round. I'm sure a lot of teams wish they would have selected Jalen Hurts if they knew what he's going to turn out to be. So you have all these guys who end up making some progress in the later rounds. And I feel like it's mainly the situation. It's all about your environment. And when you're looking at the Rookie of the Year, Bryce Young, who are his weapons? Who are his weapons really? They traded away DJ Moore. They don't have great receivers out there with the Carolina Panthers. You're looking at CJ Stroud, his weapons with the Houston Texans. It's not pretty at all whatsoever, right? And you also have Anthony Richardson. What do you got? Like Paris Campbell with the Colts. You're looking at all these QB's weapons. Will Levis with the Titans. Oh, you have Treylon Burks, who I think had some like asthma issues last year. Well, I'm looking at Aidan O'Connell, and even though he has struggled with making some erratic mistakes at times, has still flashed with making some plays sometimes. If this guy could get the ball in the vicinity of Devontae Adams, in the vicinity of Michael Mayer, of also Jacoby Myers, who by the way was the number 1 receiver for the Patriots for many years. He, like Aidan O'Connell, if he's the starter, he's the rookie with the best weapons in the NFL out of all the rookies. And maybe that's enough to make you the Rookie of the Year. Like, you don't have to be perfect, because not any other rookie has a player even close to Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that just straight up?
Straight up, yeah.
So
I keep coming back to this too. I just keep thinking like, okay, regardless of his drawbacks, like he's got a loaded squad, because they haven't committed to a rebuild, because they have these guys on the roster and they can't really say that it's a rebuild with these guys. Yeah. So it's just like, I don't know necessarily that you need Aaron Rodgers or something to get it done. Maybe not.
You might not. And we know genius Josh McDaniels, like you said, and I almost slipped on that. He could turn a high school QB into an all-pro. Mm-hmm. He said that in Denver. He's supposed to be the QB genius guru.
Right.
And then you also have the David Carr comments, Derek Carr's brother, saying that Josh McDaniels doesn't want a cerebral QB. He didn't let Derek Carr do his checks. He wants you just to throw it exactly where Josh wants it and be a robot. Yeah. Well, okay, if that's your plan and that's all you need, Aidan O'Connell should be perfect for you. Yeah. And that's why I think there should still be high expectations for Josh McDaniels. I don't really want to hear this BS excuse and be like, well, we didn't have Jimmy Garoppolo, so we didn't win games. Well, hold on. I've heard that you're a QB master and you don't need a great quarterback. You got loaded weapons everywhere. You should be able to get it done. And I expect McDaniels and Aidan O'Connell, if he really has to suit up and be the starter, I expect them to get it done.
Amen to that. And I also just want to side note, just take note of the fact that in order for you to see Aidan O'Connell in a positive light, it still is somehow connected to your Raider rage against Josh McDaniels.
Because I could already hear the excuse. I'm already hearing the excuse. Like, I'm from a mile away. I'm already hearing the excuse. Well, we had to tank this year because of Jimmy G. Well, no, you didn't. You got Aidan O'Connell, bro. And I just saw his tape. I watched like 6 of his games last night.
Yeah.
And then Pride Night too. I'm like, dude, like if you can't get to know with this dude and you're supposed to be this QB guru, I mean, he should at least have an average season.
No, he's a blank
season.
slate. He's a blank slate. McDaniels talks big talk about what he's able to do. So let's see it.
Let's see.
Yeah.
And, you know, Josh Jacobs, if you don't piss him off, he might be able to help carry the offense, but
yeah,
he seems a little pissed off lately.
Yeah. Can we get some people skills in the front office to make amends with rock star Josh Jacobs?